Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 355, recorded live on Sunday, October 9th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week we have from DDOGamer returning Geoff Hanna, who is still muted. Say hi, Geoff.
Hello, DDO. Why isn't it working?
There we go. This week's screenshot, Celsius manifests fire in the 192nd screenshot of the week. Nice little great screenshot. I think this is actually cutting off the other hand, though, unfortunately, but kind of a fun little shot mid-casting or something. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Sunday, on the October 26th, and you can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we have game news, healing amplification changes. We're going to talk about raid timer bypasses, and we're going to talk about update 23 in review, which will be the main focus of the discussion. Assuming we get there, so we're going to try and cruise through. Missed a show last week, or a week for a show last week, so we're going to cruise through some of the game news. Starting off, there was a hotfix, and this was last week, or the week before last. Let's see. Was kind of some fixes primarily to the Mirror of Glamoring. There's now a cargo hold many airship amenities purchased by an NPC named Dubgar, the second mate, or Dubgar, the second mate. And there was a thing where if you're talking to Dubgar and make sure to close the purchase panel before teleporting off your airship and speaking to another vendor. Otherwise, things can get really icky until you log out. That was kind of the main thing that was going on. Fix some other stuff, but that was kind of the primary thing there. Crystal Cove is going through November 2nd, and they adjusted the number of map pieces required to turn in. Wayfinder requires 1,000 map pieces, and everybody else requires 3,000 map pieces. So I don't know. Have you been running the Cove this time around?
I went over and checked it out. I noticed they've added a new layer of stolen gems to acquire, and they've updated the items to level 24. So, I mean, if you're a hardcore Crystal Cover, some of those level 24 items might be nice. I think they probably should have gone to 28 because, we're level 28. So, I mean, I went up and down the list, and I just, if my guild had said, let's go do Crystal Cove, okay, I could have picked something to work on, upgrade something I already have. But there was nothing that jumped out and said, hey, I got to run Crystal Cove to do this. So, no, I haven't.
I ran it a little bit because I needed a level 20 buckler for my swashbuckler. So I got the level... I only got to the tier 2 one because I didn't want to run that much Crystal Cove for the tier 3 one. It's something like the first tier, or first 2 tiers are pretty easy to get, and then the third tier is like twice as many runs as the other 2 combined. Kind of thing. I didn't really worry about it that much. See, there are new quarterly wallpapers, which we will link to in the show notes, and there were some forum changes. Basically, there's kind of some cleaning of threads. Let's see, the expansion packs free discussion forum is gone. They moved those into the general chat. The Lamania Quest XP curve changes, reincarnation, enhancements, epic destinies, have all been consolidated into other forums, and they reordered the Lamania forums a little bit. And there was some kind of back and forth on some of the other stuff. They also mentioned that they want to see some stuff go away so they don't have to moderate quite as much. Basically, accusing people of being trolls. So comments along the lines of nice troll, or maybe you're just trolling, or stop being a troll. They've been seeing that get thrown around just as a way of saying that they disagree with something and a way to dismiss an idea. And they wanted to point out that that's against the community guidelines, and they don't want to have to crack down on it, and they're hoping that people will self-moderate themselves.
Yeah, good luck with that.
It's a hope. Let's see, light armor. There are no plans to retrofit some light armor into the Update 23 content, but there are definitely plans for some named light armor in the near future. People are complaining that a lot of the named armors are not light in the new content.
It's true. Which does kind of contradict the whole swashbuckler thing, huh?
Updates oftentimes kind of help fill in some stuff with that kind of comes out at the same time. So we've seen a couple of bucklers in 3 Bell Co. at the same time we got swashbuckler. And there weren't any like heavy shields in there. I don't even know if there are any shields other than bucklers in 3 Bell Cove. We just emphasize heavy armor, so there's some extra heavy armor. There's only like 4 pieces of armor, anyways. But I don't know. Let's see. It's not like there aren't good light armors out there either. So,
including in Crystal Cove.
Indeed. There's a question about forum access. If you are a free player, you can post in the free discussion forums. If you are premium or VIP, you can post anywhere except for fan site news, which is restricted to special people like us. You should be able to see and read any forum regardless of account status, whether or not you are logged in. There was a comment on Masters Blitz. They're looking into having Masters Blitz start with 3 charges for the next big update, not the upcoming patch. I would say yeehaw. I haven't actually played with Masters Blitz since the update and the changes for the most part.
I've been mostly focused on somebody who melees with a different style and is working through his epic destinies. So I don't really have a lot of feedback on that either. I know that some of the heavy-duty endgame melee-ers, they're disappointed. They liked old Masters Blitz, and they definitely got a nerf, and they're still a little bitter over it. So,
well, I think the big thing that the change was, or part of the change was that you only have when you hit something, you have a chance of getting it.
Correct.
Getting another stack.
Right.
And that was
10%.
Kind of problematic.
Yeah, 10%. It used to be always on kill instead of 10% on hit.
Killing had its own complications.
Sure.
And I definitely support Turbine and the reasons why they changed it, and certainly did not disagree with the reasons behind some of that change. But I think changing it to start with 3 charges will be a positive change as well.
That's interesting. I would have rather attacked the accumulation routine in general. Instead of being just a flat 10%, like, maybe 10%, but you're guaranteed that you're going to get at least 1 stack out of every 10 hits. So sort of a weighted 10%, and I think that might have resolved some of the issues that people have. But I don't know. It's so changed from its original form. It has a different effect now. It's barely recognizable. It's still a good tree. That epic destiny tree is still a good tree. I'm not 100% sure though that I would, bust a. Well, I don't want to say anything crude here. Bust a part of my body that's painful to bust in order to complete that tree and get that 5th tier anymore.
Yeah, I think the main reason I haven't run with it too much was because the few characters that I would run in Masters Blitz and Mark of Death, I was running kind of earlier on when I was running it.
Uh-huh.
And I haven't run them very much since because I've been focusing on other characters that would be more interested in some of the loot. They were, it was early on. You're dying a lot more. Masters Blitz wasn't exactly conducive to the way the raid was going for me in that point in time. So I went with Sentinel Tree to get some extra hit points and some self-healing and to kind of try and stay alive a little more.
I have totally fallen in love with the Sentinel Tree. It's so awesome. And that burst healing that you get out of there, wow, so nice. But I digress, and you've got a lot of notes to read through.
That's okay. We're going to digress on the next one, I can pretty much guarantee. This is kind of the big thing that's coming. They're talking about changing healing amp. And they're kind of in the very beginning stages. Nothing's happening anytime soon, although it might happen for the next update, depending on where this goes. But they're starting the conversation with the main player or the main player base as opposed to just the Players' Council. So what they're looking to do is, rather than it being multiplicative, which is the way it currently is, they're going to change it to be an additive ability. They want to do that in a way that benefits many players while minimizing the nerf to current players, particularly those who have created builds that extend into the extreme ranges of healing amplification, and they realize that this will have an impact on some of those players, but they're going to try and minimize it as much as possible. Why change it? They want to introduce new sources of healing amplification on new items, but the team has been reluctant to do so with the current system because it is too powerful and stacked extremely high, and not good enough in small doses. And part of that, they're also hinting that they'd like to give Barbarian lots of healing amplification as part of the Barbarian Pass that's coming, which I say, yay, that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it just isn't possible with the current multiplicative model. Basically what they're saying there is they want to add more healing amplification in different numbers and kind of allow for more stacking and make it be more useful, even lesser amounts. The problem that they're running into right now is if they do that in the current system and add more numbers and more multiplication, you end up with too much. It would become, because as a multiplicative system, it snowballs. It's too big.
Yeah, it's got that big bell curve, or actually not a bell curve. It's the up end of the parabola. Off it goes into infinity.
Exactly. So what they're going to look to do is what the current plan is. Subject to change, particularly after getting player feedback. They're going to make healing amplification additive rating to make it more effective in smaller doses. That's the first thing. Second thing is they're going to double all the current values of enhancements and other sources of healing amplification. Amplification will become a rating, so it works just like melee power, range power, and spell power. Although I think spell power is probably the best analogy. The current percentage values would be converted into a rating, and then to keep healing amplification competitive, the rating would be doubled. So 10% healing amplification will become a rating of 20, and 20% healing amplification will become a rating of 40. They are also going to make all of the current ones stack, so they're going to give them different bonus types.
By number. So something that used to be a 10% item will now be a 20% with a unique type so that it stacks with everything else.
I kind of hesitate to want to say the word unique because what they're leaving open is, so everything in the game currently is going to have, a 10% item is going to be plus 10 healing application of something.
Competence,
and,
whatever.
Yeah, plus 20 or 20% will become plus 40 of insight or enhancement, and 30 will become plus 60. It's not to say that they won't add something later that will have that same bonus.
Right.
As an incremental thing. But the current ones in the game will be unique to each other. And of course, also the enhancements will still give rating and stack with all that stuff as well.
That still just sounds unnecessarily complex to me. If they're going to attack this system, attack the whole thing. Personally, that's just my opinion.
Well, I think they are. They're just making sure that the stuff that we're used to stacking right now will stack.
I guess. They're trying to avoid the nerf from being as bad as it otherwise would be.
Yeah, and you're talking about basically, you're talking about 3 different item bonus types.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we don't have those in the game already. I mean, skills have 2 generally, enhancement and competence.
Fair enough. I withdraw my objection. I frankly, it's hard for me to get worked up on this one in general because healing amplification is not really a tabletop D&D concept to begin with. So the things that get my hackles up is when they get away from D&D. Well, this is completely out of left field to begin with. So as far as I'm concerned, Durbin, have a great time with it. Do whatever you need to.
Yeah, basically, the way that the numbers work out is any build that currently has less than 250% healing application will be buffed, while builds with more than 250% healing application would see a reduction in effectiveness. Although I would put the caveat in there that if you have more than 250% application, your current stuff will see a reduction, but you'll have more options for getting more healing amp through other sources. Let's see. That was kind of the big thing of what's going on, and the summarized version. We'll link to their post in the show notes. You can read the whole thing. In the interest of speeding along a little bit, we won't read the whole entire thing. So the other thing to kind of pull out of this too is Barbarian Pass. Yeah.
Yay, and Fighter Pass too.
Fighter Pass?
Did you notice Severland's new forum title?
No.
It is. Well, now I got to go find it. It is Fighter/Barbarian/Designer.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe I'm reading way too much into that word, but I don't think so. Go fight or pass.
I think they're kind of committing to slowly working through all of the class trees and kind of giving them a pass, particularly the melee ones with another added melee and range power. Um, just some questions that were answered. People were asking. A character sheet update is not slated for this update, although they do agree that it should be there. That and many other things.
Yeah, that's poor form.
Well, I think in the back of their minds, they're going to do a pass on the character sheet sooner or later. I think the sense that I get is that they're trying to. They have a couple things they want to do before they get to that point. This is probably one of them, to change some of the way the stats work. But that's what we're going to get. So they probably want to do that, or they want to do that. It's just not going to happen in this update. It's outside of the scope of these changes. Existing items will not be retrofitted, but new item systems can now include amplification. So basically, old items will. So what they're saying with that is they're not going to just add healing amplification to old stuff doesn't have it currently, which is really what they're saying there. The stuff that has it currently will get rolled into the new system. They also said that having a healing amplification augment is a type of item we envisioned when looking at these changes, which I say yay. That would be fantastic. And let's see. Anything else out of that? They had a statement at some point that they tentatively expect all current plus 10% items to be one bonus type, a different bonus for 20%, and a third bonus type for 30% for items, which we were talking about earlier. They're also saying that this makes it easier to introduce new items or augments in understandable ways. They can introduce a 15% bonus that's the same as the 10% bonus, resulting in an increase that is only 5% more and doesn't stack with everything the way it would be expected to work, as current item values are that way. Note that if they add new stacking 15 and 25% sources, items, or otherwise under the current system, those with 897% healing amp, which I'm assuming is the top, would increase to 1,289% healing amplification. That's really where they're having the concern, is they don't want the numbers to explode like that. I know a lot of players were kind of like, why are we changing this? What's the point? Do we really need to do this? And I think is the system broken? No, the current system is not broken. The problem that's broken is they can't add things in different amounts than they. Like if we kept the system right now, you could only have 10, 20, and 30% items that would not stack, and they don't feel like they can add anything else outside of that because it's getting too crazy with the healing amplification, which makes sense to me. So.
Well, this type of problem is just endemic to a game that has this long a lifestyle. I mean, there's no way that it's completely unrealistic to expect that a design decision that was made 6 years ago is going to continue to have been the right decision this many years later with all these changes. I mean, they have to have the ability to make adjustments, even if they're painful. Now, that doesn't mean I don't feel for the people who have invested a lot of time and, in some cases, maybe even some real money in building those super effective healing amplification builds. I feel the pain of those people. But it's just not realistic to expect stuff like that to remain static forever. It's just not going to happen.
I think a good analogy here is, as I kind of mentioned before, is the spell power changes, because the spell power, or what we know now as spell power, used to work in a very similar function of multiplication and percentages and stuff like that, and they changed it to be a rating because they wanted it to have the ability. They wanted to have the ability to add other incremental bonuses without it exploding, without the numbers exploding. And you can see that currently in Endgame with things like the Meridian Fragment gives you a little bit of spell power. The blue set, the blue dragon set, I think gives you an artifact bonus to spell power. There's all these little smaller bonuses at Endgame that have their own unique bonus type, so you can kind of add some of that stuff in. And that's what they want to do with the healing amp. And I would say it was really successful with spell power. So I think it'll work out really well. It's just an adjustment. That's kind of the thing that's got to happen. Let's see. Anything else you want to add in game news? Or in the new news?
Looking forward to the Fighter and the Barbarian Pass really a lot. I can't wait to see more about that.
Yeah, especially looking forward to the Barbarian one. Let's see. Bugs. Mark of Death flagging. They've identified an issue with flagging for the new Mark of Death raid. Players should be able to initially flag for the raid running all 4 quests, completing them, and then picking them up from the raid giver. However, they've identified an issue that is causing players who are under level 26 from being able to reacquire the raid.
Oops.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it that one time. It was really great.
Yeah. Basically, it's only working the changes they made that any character level 20 or above can receive any level 20 or above quests and enter with any dungeon with a base CR of 20 or higher. Is only working the first time you acquire the raid. Is basically the short version of that. They are hoping to kind of fix that, some of that stuff. They may have actually fixed that in the hotfix. I don't recall.
I think they did fix that in the hotfix.
Yeah, they did fix an issue that could cause players level 20 or higher not to be able to acquire or reacquire the raid Mark of Death. So yeah, so that should be fixed. And I just didn't delete it. Orchard upgrade loot. So all the Orchard loot has a primary upgrade and a secondary upgrade for augments. Basically, if you, at least my understanding from what I was reading, if you upgrade the secondary augment first, you can't upgrade the primary augment. So they won't be able to, the GMs probably won't be able to fix that in game, but if you're experiencing this issue, once the fix reaches live, you should be able to add the primary augment upgrade normally. There is a little bit of problem with TR caches holding a lot of holy swords. As far as we can tell from internal testing, holy swords can be removed from your TR cache, though you don't get the old item. It does produce an unfortunately vague error, and the old item disappears and goes poof, no longer occupying your cache. These items should not be preventing you from reincarnating. If you have a lot of these in your cache, it may be difficult to tell that exactly one disappeared after you pulled it out. If you try pulling these out and haven't been able to empty your cache, please submit a bug report and make sure to include your character's name and server. And Intercession Ward. Intercession Ward should be blocking all forms of intercession for Mark of Death. And particularly what it's not doing is one of the Death Knights has an aura that does intercession or intercession. And that one is, it should be doing that, and it will be fixed in an upcoming patch. There was also a change that went into Update 23 that should prevent Intercession Ward from being disjuncted, which is a thing that happens in the raid, which is good. If you're seeing that on live, please let us know. Store news. You can, through October 23rd, get +5 skill tomes from the DDO store. You can also, this week, the sales are 20% off of True Hearts of Wood, Lesser Hearts of Wood, Quest XP elixirs, healing items, spell point potions, and you can get a free pirate grog with the code BOO31.
Boo!
Yeah,
Yar.
like that.
Boo! Yar. Sorry, I'm trying to be a pirate ghost. It's not working real good.
I was going to mention, Jeff, I don't know if this is the way it's going to be on the live feed, but on my feed, your text is mirrored right now.
Oh, I'm mirrored? Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's
not
how
ideal, is it?
I'm not sure if that's how it's going out, but
okay.
Let's see. Community news. The 113th Chronicle was last week's Chronicle. See, there was DDO Stealth Team 6 put together a great guide to stealth, and Even Note was looking at the Mirror of Glamoring. Bonnie Bew was writing about Fall Fling. Keepers of Kyber, a solo-friendly guild. We're looking for new guildies for the Guild of the Week. The comment was, what do you think is the best-looking armor in DDO? And I think that kind of depends on what else you have going on. I'm not sure. Best-looking armor in DDO. I liked the Terror Web Chitin, I think it was. The medium armor. Or did you have a favorite armor, Jeff?
I think I kind of like the blue dragon scale, both the light armor and the medium armor. They have a different look to them. The light armor's got kind of a bodysuit with spikes on it, but I just like the color and I like the textures. And the medium armor has, it's got yellow trim on it. It's blue with yellow trim. It's got kind of the full skirt sort of thing, but it's not. I mean, I think it's. I don't know. I wouldn't put it on one of my dudes probably, but it looks really good on my female artificer. I think the Blue Dragon scale armor is my favorite.
Yeah, I think it always kind of depends on what your character is. I always like the ninja robes for my my monk. The Phoenix robes were always kind of nice look as well. There's about 5 best-looking armors. Let's see, fansite news. Ginger Spice's YouTube channel is now a official fan site. Congratulations to him. I think he was running. He puts on like solo elite runs with his stuff, which I think included a shroud recently. We got a shout out for our 354 episode on clerics. Enrique was looking at Cerulean Hills. Order of Syncletica was looking at Harper Agent. DDOGamer reached, what was it, 500,000 hits?
Yes, I did. 500,000 hits. Isn't that insane? That's 500,000. And from all over the world, too. I mean, look at all these places that have visited DDOGamer.
That's
I'm showing a map right now for people who aren't able to see. Most of the world is red, orange, or pale. I mean, there's just a few. I don't know what's wrong with Greenland. I guess they just don't play DDO in Greenland. But the vast majority of the world has been to my site at least once, and most of them, many more times than once. It's really quite surprising. I don't think I would go to my site more than once, but the world has, and I'm happy about that. It certainly validates the time and effort you put into it. 500,000 views. So congratulations to the other people who write on DDOGamer too, because this isn't just me. This is a bunch of us, and outstanding. Really, really good news for all of us.
Yeah, it's a great accomplishment there. Looks like you have some marketing to do in Africa as well.
Yeah, apparently, and there's certain parts of the Mideast where we're not real popular either. But hey, we can't not everybody could like us all the time, right? I'll have to get up my Farsi edition, I guess.
There you go. Let's see. That was the 113th Chronicle. The 114th Chronicle, which was this week. Even though it's Players Helping Players, had a couple events this weekend. There were kind of Q&A for new folks. Hope those went well. See, Darkly Dreaming made some great owlbear companions. I think they're like plushy or stuffed animals. Kind of cute. And let's see, Voodoo Spy sold Shroud Elite. There you go. The guild for the week was the House of the Rising Sun on Orion. There's a friendly to beginners players, and the guild has their own Mumble server and forum. Let's see, the comment for this week was, what do pirates on Crystal Cove do when they're not plundering Crystal Cove? Drink rum out of their endless flasks of rum. That's my answer. What do you got, Jeff?
I think they play a rousing round of Gamma World. That's what I think they're up to. Somebody gave them Keep on the Borderlands, and they just got carried away with all that futuristic weaponry, and now they're playing Or better yet, I bet you they're playing Boot Hill, trying to do cowboy pirate accents. Avast ye, Hardy, I'll fill ye full of lead.
That's a little disturbing. DDM's Realm has several kinds to get the most from Crystal Cove. Order of Syncletica is looking at a Poison Master build. Enrique is looking at Against the Demon Queen. Even Note put together a photo gallery for the Underdark. And DDOGamer writes about the necessity of failure in a new blog post. Failure is important.
It is. I mean, what's the fun of a game where you walk into a quest and you're always going to win?
See, that I know where that is because I have died there many times. That's in the mansion.
Yes, that is. That is.
Back door.
Every trap that there is, all in one place. Talk about severe tire damage. There it is.
That's a fun little place.
It is.
Let's see. Crystal Cove is here. Let's see. I think we kind of talked about all of that stuff. They did update the gathering of guides with a couple of new ones. Let's see. Videos in the last 2 weeks. We will link to YouTube Voodoo's YouTube channel. The weekly Wednesday group went to the Epic Orchard this week. They did not have one last week. I did not grab a Fall Fling because I usually just grab Jerry's feed, but I believe they played this week and last week. The community update, there was a community update video on Friday the 17th, but pretty much everything we've already covered.
Yeah, didn't they used to do things other than just read the notes from the news?
They do occasionally. It kind of depends. I think it's primarily kind of another form for them to get some news out. It's not. They don't generally drop stuff that hasn't been announced in other places unless they're ready to announce it, and that's kind of the first thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
have dropped tidbits in there before.
Sure. Tolero used to every now and then, and I miss the owlbear outfit, but still nice. And plus, Jerry and I now apparently have identical glasses. I can't decide if this is good or bad. Probably bad for both of us.
I don't know which one of you is older, because that person's probably in better shape than the other one.
And less cool. I don't know. That's a race you don't want to get into. Who's the oldest and least cool? Ooh, me. Pick me.
Age does not necessarily reflect coolness.
Okay. Uh-huh. Or competence. Yeah, and no wisdom either. That whole thing about age, with age comes wisdom, it's total bull, man.
Some blogs to highlight this week. We already talked about DDOGamer celebrating passing 500,000 hits. And the Order of Skeptica talked about the secret Harper agent man. Kind of more look at the background and use of the Harper agent tree. So we'll link to those. Tack Delicious and Craft Delicious had a post regarding Update 23, specifically with Vanguard and tanking. A couple of posts, actually. Link to their site as well. And then I actually returned to the blogging sphere a little bit and kind of looked at the idea of our raid timers ruining endgame raids, which I'll have a little side discussion on that in a minute here. And the DDO Players Alliance had episodes 2 and 3 of their podcast. And they are doing a fine job there. And I think someone mentioned to them that they found that this podcast was a little harder to understand as a newer player, and I can definitely understand why that might be true. They have shall we say, much less experienced viewpoint of the game. They have not been playing for nearly as long as any of us have, because I've been playing since before Titan came out, so that's a long time. And sometimes when we talk about things, like, everyone should know them because they're second nature to us. I apologize for that.
What? You don't have the second tier of the Harper enhancement tree memorized? What is wrong with you? Learn to play.
But it's the way that things work. Podcasts have different perspectives when you have different people. But they're doing a fine job, and they're focusing more on news. And we're kind of, the way that I've kind of designed this podcast, we're talking a little bit more about some other topics and stuff as well. So
I think it's great that all these new, DDO Central has recently come out. I think just, the more fan activity, the better. This is a good thing. There's just no downside to it.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to DDO Central. If you you want to try and keep up to date with a lot of the stuff, particularly the blogs and stuff, the RDDO is great, a great source for that as well. But DDO Central is kind of combining a lot more things. So he's got pages on Facebook posts, YouTube channels, so links so you can catch all that stuff. He's reposting the blogs on the site as well. But if you kind of want to figure out where you can find some stuff about DDO and what different fans are doing in the game, that's a great option as well. And one last forum topic to throw out there, Sniper Raven's Android enhancement app. He created an app where you can browse through the enhancement trees. It's nothing special, but fairly useful and on a phone. Let him know if you like to use it, and if you'd like me to add more features like feat, skills, and etc. I'm pretty sure someone's going to say yes, please. It's only an Android app at the moment, but can be ported to iOS if needed. Let's see. I will do general gaming news before I talk about a little bit about some DDOcast news that's coming up. Turbine did confirm that they are having another round of layoffs, possibly affecting Lord of the Rings Online. He massively reached out for an official statement and got, they confirmed an unspecified layoffs by issuing the following statement to Massively. As part of our normal business process, we're routinely looking at the strategic alignment of our company. Unfortunately, in order for us to invest in growth areas at Turbine, we have to eliminate some positions. These are always tough decisions, which we don't approach lightly, but it's crucial that Turbine is structured in a way that reflects the current and coming marketplace.
Does that sound familiar? It should. It's letter for letter the exact same press announcement they used when they laid people off in February.
Is it really?
Exactly the same. It's really quite sad, So if any Turbine people are listening to this, hey, hang tough, guys. There's nothing we can do other than cheer for you, so that's what we're going to do. We're cheering for you.
Yeah, it's tough to if you read between the lines a little bit. This is kind of conjecture, but the way that they're phrasing it is the kind of suggests that some positions aren't they don't feel are as needed going forward or are as crucial. Maybe they're combining some positions, um, but they want to keep kind of going a different direction. Um, really, I mean, massively is kind of talking about it affecting Lord of the Rings, and there was a tweet from I can't remember his. It was the Lord of the Rings community guy.
Rick Heaton, Sapiens.
Yeah, Sapiens. There we go. That's the name I was looking for. He tweeted thinking of friends at Turbine and Lotro and elsewhere. Um, and it's entirely possible that Lotro is kind of going to feel the brunt of this one, like DDO felt the brunt of the one in February. I think. You know, we had to face the reality to a certain extent. Those games like DDO is what 8, 9 years old.
Well,
Lotro is
that's it
six
was.
or seven.
It's been on the marketplace for 8 years. You got to figure it was in development for 2 or 3 years first. So it's really 10 years plus old game.
Sure, um, but I mean, hey, hats off to Turbine for an 8-year-old game is nothing to shake your head at. That's uh,
Hmm.
a pretty solid run, particularly in when you think about how I mean they did a massive change in how they approached the game when they went free to play with the microtransaction model, and they were probably one of the first ones to really do it in a very successful manner mainstream. Uh, and it worked out really well for them, and we're still around. And a lot of people say that saved the game. Um, Having said that, it always sucks to hear about people getting laid off. So,
Yep, sure is. Hats off to you, Turban people, former and current. Good luck. My thoughts are with you.
oh, uh, DDOCast news. This is going to be a teaser. There will be an opportunity to win some points and snowy owlbears coming up shortly. I'll have more information forthcoming, but there will be we'll be doing a little bit of event on DDOcast. Um, that will be a short little survey kind of fun thing that will relate to all the information that I've been gathering the last couple months. So stay tuned for that. Um, should be out probably midweek. We'll have some of that stuff out. An opportunity there. It will be fun. We're recording it this afternoon, so
Ah, nice.
yes, I'm excited about it. People who are involved are excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and so keep your ear out. Sometime probably this week. Uh, Definitely by the time I do the next cast, we'll have all the details and how you can win some turbine points and some snowy owlbears, and have a little bit of fun while doing it. With that, we're going to have a mini side discussion about raid timers and if they have a negative impact on endgame rating. Because this was a topic of discussion on the forums the week before last, which I chimed in on. And I don't know if you have too many thoughts on this, Geoff. Uh, my kind of general thought is I don't think raid timers directly have a negative impact on endgame rating, but they augment the problem with the endgame raid of DDO, mostly because raids have a limited lifespan, and raid timers just kind of shorten that lifespan. At the same time, they've never really confirmed that this is true, um, but the raid timers kind of necessitate having a lower drop rate in your raid loot, since you could run them more frequently and just kind of pile up the raid loot. You can kind of the last couple raids that have come out have had very low drop rates. So what that's kind of doing is people tend to just run it on normal repetitively, quickly for 20th loot lists, so they can get the loot, um, which kind of leads to a burnout phenomenon, which again shortens the lifespan. Um, and I think kind of the fundamental problem with raiding in DDO is, and it's always kind of been this way, is there's not really an incentive to run the raid after you're quote finished with it. Once you have all your loot, there's no reason to run it unless you're helping out a friend. They're not great XP runs for the most part. Um, Tempest Spine kind of is in its own little world in terms of rating, but the other ones are not XP runs. And once you have the loot, the only thing that's possible left for you really to get would be maybe tomes. But other than the Shroud, it's not really a great tome farming option. And tomes are also purchasable in the store. So Um, that's kind of my take on it. I don't know. Do you have many opinions on that, Jeff?
Um, well, my opinion has changed in the last 6 months because I used to not mind raid timers because at least it was money going to Turbine, and I'm in favor of money going to Turbine. I think that's, it makes raises the boat for all of us. I don't think that's really the case so much anymore. Ever since they put raid timers in the holiday anniversary collectibles, and we know there's a pretty large subset of people who have been active, who figured out ways to make as many copies of those cards as they like. So there is a very sizable portion of endgame players, and I don't know how to. I wouldn't try to put a percentage on it, but I would have to say it's at least a significant portion of the endgame players who are running these quests for free in every hour. And to me, there are downsides to raid timers, and if you take away Turbine's income stream as a plus side to balance that, I can't say I'm in love with the idea.
Yeah, I would say the thing with the raid timers, they gave out a lot of raid timers just in general with the cards. I mean, I have more raid timers, enough raid timers myself, and I didn't play any shenanigans or anything like that. I just traded cross server and ended up with a lot of cards. Um, so there's like even just
I
taking
did.
away the people that are duping, just normal players too have plenty of cards as well.
I have about 60 of them, and but it's a finite. It's a finite stack. Every time I use one, I realize, hey, this is getting smaller, and it's not going to come back. So I don't know. I don't want to harp on the one thing. I think that's. I mean, you can't have this discussion without having all of it. And I think that the fact that some people have an infinite stack of these raid timers should be part of the discussion.
Absolutely, and duping is certainly kind of, I would say, the top two. If there's two issues right now that are kind of plaguing DDO, it's lag and duping, for sure. Um, but I think that in terms of raid timers, I don't think the raid timers are ruining raiding. Again, I think they just kind of augment the fundamental problem with raids in DDO is they have a limited lifespan. Once you're done running it, there's no, like, why would you keep running it? There's no XP, there's hardly any XP involved. They're not that great XP runs. I mean, Vaughn 5, which is a raid, sort of, is really the only one that's, at least in Epic, is worth the XP.
Oh, it's huge XP.
Yeah,
But it's not one you can speed run easily. You need a pretty highly trained group of people to speed run that guy.
yeah. Even though it's still a really good XP run, but it's not like you don't complete the raid. It's part of the raid. It's really though. I think in terms of fixing it, the game kind of needs a reason to run epic raids. Even like the older epic raids would be great. The suggestion that I put out a couple times is, or the one I put out in the blog post that I wrote basically was adding a new epic raid ingredient. And the idea was to kind of do it in a way that it wasn't necessarily a lot of new technology in terms of the game, kind of piggybacking off of what the combinations Valor and Heartseeds do. So the idea would be that you'd have a standard epic raid ingredient across all the epic raids. The amount of what you would get would vary based on what difficulty you're running on. So normal, hard, elite, just like combinations of Valor do. And then also could be, ideally would be adjusted by the quote designed raid length. So Deathworm and Caught in the Web would give more because they're longer raids than Follow Truth and Mark of Death. And then you would get the ingredient from the end reward only if your quest ransack penalty is, say, less than 50%. So again, just like combinations of Valor and Heartseeds, you kind of tie it into the quest ransack penalty. Not as aggressive as those are. And then you can use that for bartering for different items, skill and stat tomes, heart seeds, combinations of heroisms, seals and shards from the scroll seal and shard system. Maybe even raid items, mirrors of glamoring, true and lesser hearts of wood. Hey, a way of getting lesser hearts of wood in game would be fantastic. Augments are options, astral shards. Samus was saying that a way to make a bind to character item bound to account and bound to character on equip, so you can kind of move a bound to character item would be really cool. Those are all possibilities, and you can adjust the costs for them. It's they're barter systems. Again, it's not a system we don't have in the game. You can just adjust the numbers around as you like.
All right. 2 comments.
Go.
One, we already had that. It was called Greater Tokens of the 12. So just bring those back. It's simpler. Instead of yet another new system, if that's what you want to do that. Now, having said that, I don't think that's really the right answer either, because what's going to happen is people are going to identify the 1 or 2 raids that provide the best bang for the buck in whatever the new shiny thing is, and they're just going to run the hell out of that, and all the rest of the stuff is going to be just as ignored as it is now. So, I mean, I have put zero thought into this concept, but the one idea that bubbles to the top of my head immediately is take your idea, but have each raid give out a unique token, and have the trade-in be a full set. So if you want to get something cool, you got to go run every raid on Epic once, and then you can trade it in, or 5 times, or whatever. I don't know. Like I say, I've put zero thought into it. That's not a mature idea, but at least it does have the advantage of requiring all the raids to get run, and not just the 2 ones that provide the best bang for the buck.
I would certainly not be opposed to that. The only part of the reason why I did it this way, and I didn't think of that. I like the idea. The only thing I kind of hesitant about that is that's what 12.
And it'll change every time a new raid comes out.
It's a lot of new ingredients,
right.
which is problematic. I don't know if you'd necessarily like one of each, but I think you could do different combinations of them, which would be kind of interesting. For sure. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to that. But I think really the fundamental thing is we need something that extends a raid's lifespan when people are actually running the raid. At least in Epic. Heroic, I don't think we really need that at this point, because it's kind of a different game at Heroic nowadays. But Epic raids, you can run them with any level in Epic, and it'd be nice to see some of the older raids have reason to run them. Something. We need something that I think to really kind of give new life to the raid game.
Well, one more idea that I'll throw out there, and this isn't a new one for me. This is actually one I came up with, I don't know, a year or 2 ago. I'm checking. February 11th, 2013. What we need is a universal currency. So what we need is, and what this really is a way to trade anything in for something that then you can use to buy anything with. So it's sort of like an interface, so between everything and everything else. And now the stuff that drops from every individual raid, whereas it may not be of value in and of itself intrinsically, it does have value in terms of it can go through the universal currency and be translated into something that has value that you can then buy other things with or trade for other things. So I even went through and just took a stab at all of the collectible and all of the ingredients. I came up with a list of everything, and even and assigned it a value of what it might be worth in terms of universal currency. This is out of date since it's from February of 2013, but I think the same concept would hold up. The downside is that every release, and this is true of your idea too, and my other idea with the different tokens for each raid, every release they'd have to adjust this, and they'd have to maintain this new system in perpetuity. And say what you want about Turbine, they do some wonderful stuff, but they're really bad about maintaining one system in perpetuity. They like to come out with new systems all the time and let the old ones just, rot. So that wouldn't work. Not for this.
Which kind of, hopefully they would kind of take something and use it as a measuring stick and kind of use it going forward. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to do too, because you don't know what you can do 2 years down the road exactly and what that's going to look like. And I'm sure that with every quest that gets released, players come up with something that they just did not expect at all to become popular in mainstream strategy. So there's problems there. But yeah, we just need something that kind of extends the lifespan, and I think it needs to circumvent the raid timer thing. That's why I kind of tied it into the ransack penalty. If you're running it over and over and over again, you shouldn't be getting this, whatever the caveat is, or the carrot is. Anyways, we're going to move on from that. There's just kind of some brief thoughts, and we're going to talk about Update 23, and we're going to give it a review, and hopefully it'll be a fairly quick one since we're long already. So we're going to just kind of cruise through, and we'll try not to get too sidetracked and too in-depth. We're just going to give quick impressions on a number of things that came out with Update 23. And we're going to start with the quests, the Epic Orchard quests. And I would say that I enjoyed them. They're pretty much what I was expecting. They weren't exactly shiny and new because they're just a rehash of the old quests. I did really like that they have different types of mobs, and the mob types are a little more varied. So it's not just all undead in certain areas. You get more kind of variety, particularly in Temple of Vol. I felt, but I would give the quest probably about a B grade. They're still fun. I really enjoyed them. They did a good job of making them epic. They're just not new.
I have a hard time putting a grade on a revamped quest. I mean, yeah, that's a fine quest, but I mean, none of them felt different to me. I give you that out of all of them, the one that felt the most different was Temple of Vol, but it didn't feel different. It was just, degrees of sameness. It was least same, but still pretty much the same. Now, the one thing, though, that was wildly different, and I found kind of interesting, although it took me a while to adjust to it, is the change they made to the adventure area. I like that. Now there's this lots and lots of mobs all over the place, and you really have a hard time getting from point A to point B, period. I mean, it's more dangerous to run through the adventure area than it is to run the quests. So if you're out there for Slayers, boy, it's a target-rich environment out there, I'll tell you that. So
Pop a Slayer pot, get a party.
Yep. So overall, I would give, the revamped quests and the raid probably, I don't know, I guess a C+. They get the plus for the C for more of the same, and the plus for the change to the raid or to the adventure area, which I like.
Let's say just as a quick side note, if you want to run Slayers, pop a couple hires. If you've got the figurines, or pop a hire that increases the number of mobs you'll run into, so you can get more Slayers. Let's talk about the raid, which I think you haven't run yet. I like most of the raid. I think if anything, it's a little short. But I think that's probably because players have been running it on normal, where the water is less lethal. I like how they utilized the old items and puzzles out of the Abbot. I like how particularly I like how the goggles work. The tiles work in the new raid compared to the old Abbot. I like how the water is not instant death. There's a little bit of grace and margin for error. I really like those aspects of it. I think that the raid itself is a little bit more chaotic than the old Abbot, so the ice wands don't really work very well. You just don't really have enough time to pull them out, throw an ice wand, and jump onto it during Inferno, but there's kind of ways around that as well.
Wow.
But
the new raid is the same as the old raid too?
Yes and no. The Abbot still uses Encasement, Inferno, and Destruction. But that's kind of the main thing that's the same. There are goggles and goggle tiles, but they're used in a very different manner.
All right.
It's not the same. It's not a goggles puzzle. It's not the goggles puzzle.
Right.
There's no throwing rocks at Roids, which was problematic for a number of reasons. But you could still use the rocks to get out of Encasement.
Okay.
And you still get ice wands to escape Inferno, which I think that's the one piece of that they kind of pulled in from the old Abbot that doesn't work very well, because it tends to be a little bit more of a chaotic raid. There's a lot more trash mobs going around. You have to move around a lot more. The Vol I think is fun and great and a pain in the butt. She's not a very nice lady and throws kind of AoE death area. The Mark of Death is kind of an area effect that will kill you pretty rapidly. If you stay in it, you take bane damage equal to like 20% of your health over time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it'll kill you pretty quick if you don't get out of it. So there's a lot of moving around, some mobs that you got to deal with. It's fun. It's chaotic. It's a little short, but I think that's probably because with what we were talking about earlier, we were running it repetitively on normal. So on harder difficulties, it's a little more interesting. That's for sure. So I would give it an A minus, just because I think it's a little on the short side, and the ice wands for Inferno just don't functionally work for it. It's not that they don't work. It's just strategically and functionally with everything that's going on, it just doesn't work to have you only have 2 ice wands, and there's just not enough time to like pull it out, shoot an ice island, and jump out and make it work. But there's other ways to run Inferno, so it's not, at least currently, so that's not too big of a deal. I think you haven't run it, right? So
I have not run it. Nope.
yeah. A lot of people have been enjoying it, other than the fact that they've been running it for days on end. So but they still mostly enjoy it. So I'd say that that's a good thing. Let's talk about the loot.
Okay.
I would give the loot. This is kind of a personal perspective. I think it's really solid loot, particularly the stuff out of the quests. The raid stuff is pretty good as well. There's not a lot of pieces, particularly in the raid, that I'm really excited to get. And I think part of that is because there are, all the loot's kind of like level 27, level 28 loot. It's high level loot, and if you're kind of running epic lives repetitively, you don't get as much use out of it. Having said that, I'd probably give the loot a B plus. I think there's some really solid pieces of loot, and they did a good job with it. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Oh yeah, I'm giving the loot an A plus, because my definition of a good set of loot is there's at least one thing in there that every one of my characters wants and is willing to go to extreme lengths to acquire, and that is a true statement. So all of my characters have found something in there that now that they look at, they really feel like they just got to have it, and well, that's what loot's supposed to do, right? It's the gleaming carrot at the end of that painful stick, and the loot here gleams pretty brightly. I'm pleased. I will say though, it's really hard to get. I mean, the very first night of new content night, we ran most of the Orchard quests once, and immediately pulled in, I think in the very first quest, an epic Fang glove. We haven't seen anything since, nothing. We're, I don't know, 20, 25 completions of those quests. So, okay, well, it's not going to be easy. That's all right. We're tough. We can handle it. But there's some nice stuff. A plus.
Outside of the raid, I think the drop rates are pretty reasonable. I think the other reason I'm giving it a little bit lower of a grade is the drop rate in the raid is just ridiculously low. Again, going back to previous conversation, there's reasons why that is, but it's kind of lousy to run a raid. I think I've seen one item drop from the raid, and that was when we ran it. Actually, no, that wasn't when we ran it on Elite, I think. But I haven't seen very many items, if at all, drop from the raid, and a lot of runs, which is, I don't feel like that's how a raid should work. I expect to see some raid loot when I run a raid in the chest.
Yeah, you should get a couple of pieces. There should be a couple of pieces of raid loot every time a full group goes through there on hard. I believe that to be a true statement.
That was kind of the way that it worked in the past,
Yeah.
and I still kind of have that expectation. And I think raid timers necessitated a change in drop rates.
Really? Well, because that would just be flat out evil, because now that means they're requiring us to run 20 right. No, that can't be right. I'm just going to go with you're wrong, I hope. I'm going to hope they didn't give us infinitesimal drop rates because of raid timers, because if so, that's the end of people saying that their duping habits have no effect on me. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're taking away my raid loot directly if what you're saying is true, and I sure hope that's not right.
I have not pulled a single item out of Mark of Death, and I have run it more than 20 times.
Wow. Well, but you're seeing the chest full of loot for other people. I mean, how many pieces drop when you run it on hard?
I have seen one piece of loot drop in all of my runs.
No way.
One.
Wow. See, that's just wrong.
Now, we've been running it mostly on normal.
It's still just wrong.
I've seen one piece of raid loot. Yeah, and that's why I kind of had the raid loot discussion, the timer discussion. And that's why I say B plus, because the drop rate in the raid is paltry and unreasonably low. I understand the reasons that can be behind it, probably are behind it. I don't know that this is true or anything, but I mean, again, functionally, there's a problem with the raid design. On the other hand, too, players were asking for raid timer bypasses pretty much as soon as the marketplace hit the world. Since we knew that was coming, that's one of the things that people wanted in the store. So, Mirror of Glamoring. Moving right along.
All right, this is a happier topic.
I have not Mirror of Glamored anything, but I am not really big into cosmetics. From my perspective, I would say probably give it about a B plus. There were some problems when it came out and were implemented. They were fixed very quickly, which was great. So I'd probably say more towards a B plus. And the stuff that would be expected. It's a big system change, so I'm not surprised by it, and I think they handled it very well. But I'm not a big cosmetics guy, so. What about you? Have you been Mirror of Glamoring stuff?
No, I haven't. I won one on my daily dice, and I've been hoarding it until I find the perfect thing to duplicate. But so who knows? I may never actually get around to using it. But I still give the concept an A+. Again, because number one, it's another thing that people have been asking for since day one. Finally, we're getting it. I mean, this is like a core thing, in terms of MMOs. Number two, it's no matter how many times you dupe this stuff, you're not affecting my gameplay. This is purely a cosmetic change, and the only side effect of this is that it makes Turban money, and you don't need it to win. I think it's the absolute perfect fit for the DDO store. I love every part about it. So
yeah, concept, I would definitely say A+. Great concept.
Yes.
Implementation.
Okay, a little sloppy up front, but it's fixed, right? As far as I know, they are now working correctly in all cases, and I can't wait till they come out for weapons too. So, yay, double yay.
And I'll stick a little thing in here. I don't consider a B+ to be bad either. I'm just putting that out there.
All right. So you're grading on the curve, is what you're saying, or maybe I am.
C is average, right?
All right.
So, hirelings. I have used. I don't tend to use hirelings a lot. I did play with hirelings a little bit. I was trying to run Ghost of Perdition solo. It used to be that the bottom weep would come up to the top, and he wasn't doing that. So I tried to pile my figurines on one and go down and beat on the other, kind of in a weird function. And I'm not sure if it was because of the buggy AI system that they had that was some of the stuff that got changed, or if it was because it was an area that was stacked, but the cleric ran all the way down to the bottom with me after I got attacked, which I thought was kind of amusing. But yeah, this is not something I have a lot of experience with. I think I like the concept that they were adding some of the stuff in. I particularly like that if you call them to you, they just port instead of launch.
Yay, that is a plus. Yes.
So mostly on concept, not really having played with them, but aware that there have been some problems and people have found them to be less smart than they used to be. I would say I'll give it about a B. But I
don't know. The only real plus out of this whole thing was the call to you instantly. It may be that they work better in. I mean, there's always been some quests that are harder on the hirelings than the others, and maybe I've just been running a lot of those quests. But I mean, it's sometimes just stay. I click stay. Stay. I run away. Here she comes. No, I run back. Stay. Stay here. I click stay. I walk away. Here she comes. We can repeat this for hours. So you have to cycle through from passive to active to passive again to get the stay command to work. How is this? That's not helpful to me. So, I mean, the concept of turning off their attack and turning off their silly little wand of Nimbus of Light. Hey, here's 6 points of pay attention to me, monster, but it has no other useful effect. Okay, turning those things off is nice. How about we just turn them off instead of making me do right clicks every single quest on every single hireling? Let's do that. And as far as I don't know how to make the hirelings smarter, it must just be really hard to code because they are not smarter.
Yeah, the hirelings have always, every time I touch hirelings, it seems that they get dumber for a little while and kind of got to run things around again.
That must be some gnarly code. That's all I can think of. I mean, I am a coder. I try to think, how would I write the code for that? And I don't have a slightest clue. So I can see why that would be hard to do.
Vanguard tree. I haven't played with this a lot, I did go through the tree and I retooled my Paladin with Vanguard and kind of played around a little bit. Um, I'll say straight up, I'll give it a solid A. I think I really noticed that the attack speed bonuses to it. Um, I love the fact that I found more max dex bonus and less armor check penalty. My heavy tank right now, my Paladin heavy tank, is with full plate and a tower shield. Has something like I think it was up to like 10% dodge now, which is pretty decent there. And he jumps really good, amazingly enough. But it doesn't feel like he's being slowed down by that, and his movement is being hindered at all. And the attack speed he has right now is great. I'm still tier 5 in the defender line because he's more of a tank than an offensive magnet. But I have seen a lot of folks that really, a couple of my friends really are enjoying Vanguard and being more offensively based with sword and board, which I think is fantastic. And it's great to see that sword and board, as well as single weapon fighting, are two additional melee styles that are really working well. And I think that's great. Any comments on Vanguard?
Nah, I'd have to give it an I for incomplete. Not because it is incomplete, but because my use of it is. So I don't really know enough about it to have a good comment. I don't play tanks.
That's fair. And a couple of people that I've seen play it and really enjoy it don't play tanks either, generally, or at least not anything you consider a traditional tank. But they have been playing in Vanguard with fighter or paladin levels when they're doing those lives recently, and I've really enjoyed the heck out of playing sword and board, which is great. And I think,
yeah, I have a guildmate who swears by it. So if he was on the cast, he'd be giving it an A for sure.
Yeah, I think anytime you're taking people that had no interest in playing sword and board at all and are really going from, I have no interest in playing it, it's not effective offensively, and I'm really more offensive-minded too. This is a viable offensive option. I'm really enjoying it. I think that's great. Talk about the Harper tree. And I'm going to follow your episode. I'll give this an I for incomplete. I really haven't looked at the tree. I haven't put any points into it, even though I kind of intended to do so. But have you played with it a little bit?
I have. There's some good stuff in the tree. So now, however, there's very few you must have them in the tree. Depending on, there might be certain builds. Like I guess there's some. Well, I mean, I'm stammering here. I don't want to do that. You can get melee power out of here, and if you're a melee power build, then maybe you need that. You can get 20% healing amp out of here. It's not easy. It's not low-hanging fruit, but it's in there. And if you're a healing amp build, maybe you need that. There's a really nice. You can get up to a +7 weapon that stacks with your existing pluses on your weapon against evil. +4, +7 versus evil. That's really sweet, because an enhancement bonus on your weapon is pre-multiplying everything. So I mean that damage just. Talk about your parabolic curve. That's exactly where you want your damage at. So that's really nice.
Another thing to add to that too is if your weapon is an implement, it adds to your spell power.
Yes, it does. So if you're a meleeer, there's some good stuff in there. If you're a ranged user, hey, you can get range power. This is the only place to get range power right now. If you're a trapsmith, you can get +60 or spot and search and +3 to everything else. There's 50 points of universal spell power available in here. Another 100 plus some mana points, plus one more to all your DCs. And you can get 2 feats essentially for free in the form of extend and eschew material, however you say that. Now, here's the thing, though. None of this stuff is super low-hanging fruit. And this has been the downside of the tree for me, is that it, you really have to have a build that has points to burn to invest too heavily in the Harper. At least for me. Maybe if you, it's a little bit of everything. So you don't ever, you don't want to put all your points into Harper. Your character is going to be too homogenized and too spread out. It won't be good at any one thing, right? So, but on the other hand, especially, and this might be oversimplified, but it seems to me that pure class builds often have AP to spare. And if so, dive into the Harper tree, because there's some good stuff in here if you can afford it. One last comment. I still wish they had instead given us racial enhancement trees instead of this, but hey, it's new and I like new.
Yeah, I think that in terms of implementing a tree that is available to everyone, it's a good job in the sense that it's not something that every single build wants to have or has to have. But there's stuff in there that some builds can get some really good use out of, which I think is ideal if we're going to go in that direction.
I really think that most builds can get something out of here. It's just the question is what are you giving up to do it? And in most, I think for a lot of, especially some of the more complicated multi-class builds, you're not going to be able to make that trade-off.
Indeed.
So I give it a B.
Let's see. Armor Up and MMR. I'll let you go first on this one.
I don't know. They're getting further away from D&D. So for completely unrelated to the way they implemented things, I'm giving it a failing grade. I hate melee power. I hate it.
We're not talking about melee power. We're talking about armor and MMR.
I know, but it's all.
We'll talk about melee power and range power in a minute.
I know, but they're all. This is all part of the same wave of changes that they're putting through, and it's nice to see that they have a long-term strategy for getting the melee system rebuilt, even though it's taking them multiple upgrades to get it all rolled out. I like to see them using a long-term strategy like that, and this will probably, I don't know, it might even work, but it just rubs me the wrong way. It gives me the hives, and I can't help it. So you probably shouldn't ask me for a grade because I can't grade it fairly. Your turn.
That's fair. So we're talking about the armor changes and MMR. I would say I've definitely noticed that my heavier tank builds are much more survivable, particularly when it comes to energy bursts, like energy damage. And I found this to be particularly noticeable in the Abbot, because the new Abbot, in Mark of Death, because the new Abbot can cast a energy burst, just like Draconic Incarnation can. And it apparently has no save, which means my monk, which has absolutely no MMR, went in the first time, and since my heavy tank guy did just fine going toe-to-toe with him, he went straight up to the Abbot and toe-to-toe, and boom, was dead. So I'd say that if they wanted to even the playing field, I think they more than did so in a lot of ways. That I don't think evasion will be the end-all, be-all of things going forward, which I think is good. And then, so I just say that their goals were achieved. I certainly found that my heavier tank guys were having a lot of fun and much more enjoyably survivable than they have been in the past. I'd probably give it about an A minus because I think the pendulum may have swung a little too far on that, but that may just because that one particular attack that was devastating for my evasion guy has no reflex save. So now I'll talk about melee and range power. I almost haven't really noticed it that much, but I haven't really been paying that close attention. I don't really have a problem with it being in the game, other than the fact that it seems to be a little. It's not quite there yet, I guess you would say that it's not really fully implemented. So I'd probably give it about a C, because it's just kind of there for me. It's not really noticeable. It's not really not noticeable, and it's not really fully implemented yet.
Well, there are a couple of systems in the game that I hate more. So, although one of them they took out. I mean, I think the worst idea ever was Guild Renown Decay. Okay, they did away with it. Yay. The second worst idea ever was Dungeon Alert. Okay, that's still around. I still hate it. Especially when you get Dungeon Alert and you're not... I mean, that's just the way the quest is designed. It gives you a whole bunch of bad guys all at once. You're doing everything the way you're supposed to, and you're in Red Alert. I hate that. Okay, melee power isn't as bad as any of those. It just... I don't know. It's fingernails on a chalkboard for me. I don't want to play games that are not D&D. This is why I'm here.
I long ago made peace with the fact that it's not pen and paper. But
okay, all right, never mind. Off my soapbox.
No, and I get it. That's certainly a valid concern. I appreciate that they want more character balance, and I support that. Character balance is better for the game, for sure. It's
Really?
better if
I dispute that statement. I don't think characters need to be balanced at all. I think every character has to have a purpose and a reason, and if that's your balance, okay, I'll go along with
that's
that.
what I'm talking about. I'm not saying every character needs to be able to do everything every other character can do, but there people particularly in the level that I play, people that I play with, they play things that are powerful, and if it's a class or character or style that's not competitive, they won't play it, and I think that's less good for the game than if you should be able to make a viable competitive build for any class. That's
I agree with that statement.
that's where I kind of came on the thing, and if melee power makes that better, I support it. I'm not sure if it does yet, to be honest. I didn't really feel like it needed to happen. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen, but I also kind of come from a standpoint that I kind of felt like it was in the game already to a certain degree, particularly the way it was being implemented in Epic Destinies. Just because like there anything that says you're going to do this percent more damage, it's the same functional system. It's just not called melee power under the old system. So, let's talk about just are there any other changes that stand out to you that you have enjoyed or excited about?
From update 23?
Yep.
Um,
Just random hodgepodge. Go. Short version.
I don't know. I am having fun in the orchard. I think overall, update 23 is a plus. I think it's a win. I think we've had a little bit too many releases in a row where it's warmed over content, though. So I'm really looking forward to some brand new content in update 24.
I really like the changes that glancing blows now work on while you're moving around. I like the Holy Sword and Zeal changes. The trap XP bonus is nice, although not something that I'm really pay attention to too much. I kind of like what they did with the pre-caching and who loading stuff, other than the fact that the LFM list is kind of messed up now.
Right. I do like that. I should have mentioned that. That's a plus. They finally fixed the double login bug. Yay.
Yeah, I never really had that problem, but I have noticed in general that it takes a little bit longer for the launcher to start up. But once I'm trying to get into the game, like once you get past that point, it's definitely a faster experience getting into the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
It probably actually evens out with the pre-caching thing. And then the other thing I wanted to throw out there is the changes to Thermal East 3, which I haven't actually run since then, but the fact that you don't have to keep Coil alive anymore is...
I don't even know about this. What is the detail here?
Let's see if I can find it. They changed how Thermal East 3 works. They gave it some XP too. But if I recall correctly, basically what happened was that if Coil's an optional now. If he stays alive, you get some extra XP. But he doesn't have to stay alive to complete the quest.
Well, that'll reduce a lot of frustration.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it really quick. Anything else kind of that you're enjoying about the update?
A lot of people in the orchard. That's fun. It's nice to see population. I like that.
And Mark of Death really hasn't been that laggy, which I think is a win. We're doing a raid that's not really laggy, like Temple Deathworm was, and Fire Peaks 2 to a certain extent. So that's a win, I think.
Oh, and I like that we now get the epic quest from a different quest giver, as opposed to the way they were doing it in the past, where you had the same quest giver for both, or they stood next to each other, or the sagas intertwined. It was always confusing. Am I taking the heroic one or the epic one? And I always ended up with quests on my quest log that I didn't want. And so I like having completely separate area where you get your quests. It's all very delineated. I think that's a plus.
Hold for reinforcements. This quest no longer has a failure condition. Coil now only suffers incapacitating damage once he is below 0 hit points. Players are now awarded optional XP for completing the dungeon without Coil being incapacitated. The base XP of the quest has been increased buy 1200 XP. The new optional objective is worth 50% of the base.
Nice. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. I know we're trying to end eventually someday, but I got one more thing. One of the rare encounters in the orchard is so much fun. It's this one where you're trying to run through the classic mad scientist Frankenstein scene, and there's lightning flashing, and you're trying to solve puzzles to draw power to different combinations of reincarnation apparatus while this guy is insulting you, essentially, and raising a flesh golem. It is completely different from any kind of rare encounter I've seen before. It's very, very fitting. It just fits in perfectly with the whole Fleshmaker's Laboratory approach to horror, and I love it. Whoever came up with that, double thumbs up. That one's just all kinds of fun.
We should also point out that you found some enjoyment out of the fact that Mental has a wife.
Yes, yes, the Bride of Fleshmaker.
All right, let's move on to Lightning Post. There's a couple items this week. This one came from Nancy saying, "Great cleric show. As you know, she's a huge fan of clerics hopping around a bit, and wonder if the reversion to heavy armor hinders your character from this form of natural evasion." She's talking about jumping around, if you will. So the I would say that, yeah, my cleric definitely does not jump around anywhere near as good as he used to, since he's running around with heavy armor and a shield more often now. That also comes from the fact that I have fewer skill points to spend in jump. I used to always have a skill point to spend in jump with my cleric, which I can't do anymore.
That's in spell power.
Yeah, it's in the spellcraft now. So, yeah, he has problems. And I've run into this in Mark of Death. There's a special attack where it kind of the common way of getting around it is to jump into the nasty water. The problem is my cleric sometimes doesn't have enough jump to get back onto the island, and he dies in the water. I run into that a few times. She also said that she's not a fan of the extra turning uses of action points cause for Radiant Servant Healbot. That's what extra R and because of extra R and Radiant bursts. I would definitely say that I don't really use turning for anything other than bursts and a healing aura myself these days. I think I have the reactive healing, which I occasionally use, but that's about it. Day News, this is all stuff about the cleric episode we had. Day News said that for the cleric rogue, they do have one very handy advantage, Find Traps, which is a half cast level as an insight bonus to search, so it should stack with everything, meaning they can get a little leeway from where they can put their limited skill points. They would still use that combo more on a melee cleric than a caster one. So on the melee, you wouldn't need to worry so much about spellcraft or even high wisdom, letting you spare some more of intelligence, which is definitely true. As for not knowing why you take Extend, truly it's because you're playing an elf and want to stay permanently displaced. Yeah, I don't know, that's true. Ostensibly, I take Extend for Prayer, Recitation, Holy Honor, and Divine Power, which are probably the only ones worth extending.
I don't take Extend on my clerics. I do on my because most of the stuff that you're mentioning here is for a melee cleric. So and I do have a battle cleric. I don't know if he has Extend or not, but the ones that heal and our spellcasters.
Where I was using Holy Aura a lot. And I think it was kind of when Tower of Despair was kind of the end game. And I think it's still kind of a holdover from there. Extend may not make it on my build the next life. That's for sure.
Well, it goes on my wizards and my arcane casters for sure. But it doesn't go on my divines unless they're battle clerics.
Yeah,
and
that may be true for me.
Yeah.
Lich also commented he forgot to include a very obvious source of turn max hit dice. Seek Eternal Rest cleric buff. This is the easiest way to quickly boost turn ability by 4.
Nice.
I think Seek Eternal Rest might be a spell. That sounds right. Again, I'm not a turning guy. He also said that he finished epically Mark of Death as a backup healer. He kept the archers blinded with Sunbeam and vampires dead with Sunburst, while wizards kept Beholder's Stone. And having the Sun Elf +2 sovereignty clicky, or the 2 sovereignty clicks come in handy with 100 plus deaths and 4 divines in the party, which certainly seems feasible in that. I should say that was kind of the one other thing about Mark of Death that I think any raid where the common tactic is to just turn everything to stone is kind of lousy, but that's me. Although I have done that without that tactic, and it went just fine. The survey question for the week: why do hirelings hate me?
Well, if they were kobolds, then it would be double hate, right?
I'm going to say hirelings hate you because you don't give them any of your shinies.
I think it's because I think they hate me because I won't let them use their little stick that does 6 points of light damage to whatever shouldn't be getting aggro on them. I took away their stick, and now they hate me.
May indeed be the case. All right, so anything else you want to shout out here before we close out the show?
Nope, just good to be back on the show. Thanks for having me. Hello, DDO world. Nice to see you all again. It's a lovely, lovely day.
Yeah, thanks, Chef, for joining me. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to all the other current contributors to DDOCast. Thanks to Turbine for working hard on the game, and thanks for Wizards for being D&D and supporting Turbine in that. And thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you want to be part of the show or just say hi, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. The closing tip for the week comes from Silent. Do not do Epic, Normal, or Casual before doing Heroic Elite, or you will lose favor. Until you do Epic Elite, as you will not get credit for Heroic Elite afterwards. A good handy tip if you are interested in getting maximum favor. And because we have a second screenshot of the week, this is Yolia Razula hanging out on the Guild airship with a pumpkin-headed friend in the 193rd screenshot of the week. So, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest levels appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to enjoy Update 23.